a little bit more, but we must talk about Emilio's deck as well. Now, we've got a matchup that we don't see very often here. It's actually the Hops Zacian. Now, Hops Zacian is a card that's been splashed around a little bit. Again, it's a card that hasn't really found its place in the format, but it's the Monkey Dory, Cramorant, and Maractus build. So it's that very linear, just going for that one attack, and just, PVC book play is actually starting now. Go on.
Yeah, as we kick off round 4, a strong start for Emilio, starting with that Tatsugiri, the dream frontman of the team. On the other side, we have Benji trying to build up that bench. We did see some of the prize cards as well. The Unfair Stamp, a great way to lock out the early stage of a Hops deck. There's not typically much of a draw engine in it, so it can struggle with early disruptions. So Unfair Stamping prize could be huge, but on the other side, just the Latias EX may be something significant to look out for Emilio.
Yeah, it is going to be a very important card for Emilio as he starts to get set up. Having that free retreat to get into the Hops Zacian out of that Tatsugiri is going to be oh so important. And here we see the Insta Strike from the Hops Zacian is going to be very important for Emilio to start unloading the damage as soon as possible. I think the benefit of Hops Zacian is that with the low energy cost, you can afford to play different cards like the Hops Choice Band as well, which gives it a free attack essentially and 30 more damage. So that damage ramps up very quickly, especially in succession with the Hops Snorlax as well. You know, suddenly that 30 damage starts to cramp up a little bit, and you know, those big HP costs on these basic EX Pokemon starts to whittle down just a little bit.
And there, Benjamin just finishing his deck check. We'll be trying to work out what those 6 prize cards are and trying to make decisions based off of it. We'll bring another Droopy down. That's going first. Wants to try and get as many Dragapult on board as possible. And actually see 2 in hand, ready to attach, but to evolve next turn. And it will be back over to Emilio, who started with a Tatsugiri in the active, will now look to build the board behind it. But having a strong pivot Pokemon like that can really make a difference in the game. And you'll be seeing that ability there attract customers to try and find a supporter.
Yeah, trying to find the supporter. It's very reminiscent of the old Stellar Wish Jirachi, maybe a bit of a lighter version, I should say. But that Tatsugiri is going to be very important for Emilio to have a sort of pivot, but also to find potential supporters to keep the game up and running for himself. So here we see the Hops Station as well. You know, a little bit of top deck from Emilio to find that Pokemon. I'm unsure if I'll find any Nest Ball or Hops Bag in hand, but having that Zacian on board now, you will imagine he's just going to start to get that energy up and running on that Zacian. And this is the sort of matchup that Hops Zacian would like to see, the evolving Pokemon, the smaller Pokemon. If Benji is going to go for the slower approach to this matchup, that damage, again, like I said, starts ramping up 30 on the active, 30 on the bench. In conclusion, with a lot of different damage modifiers, like the Choice Band, like the Snorlax, you know, this is going to be where Emilio's going to start taking advantage really early.
And we look at these trainer archetypes, with N-Zorok being the strongest of the archetypes currently, and a lot of that comes down to the consistency brought through the ability trade. And when we look at Hops' toolbox of items, trainers, and Pokemon, it really does lean towards the different trainers in the deck. You have various different modifiers that increase your damage output, but also allow you to find your Pokemon easier. And I think that's what the secret box allows you to do. It kind of finds a combination of those pieces all in one card.
And that's a great addition here we see on board for Emilio is the Postwick. The Postwick Stadium is going to be increasing the damage for your Hops Pokemon by 30. So in connection with the Choice Band and the Snorlax, that 30 damage all of a sudden becomes 120.
An interesting stadium inclusion that we did see earlier on is that Calamitous Snowy Mountain. And this is one that we haven't really seen much in recent times. I don't think many people would have assumed to see it today on stream. And it has that ability, the effect of whenever any player attaches an energy card from their hand to one of their basic non-water Pokemon, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So really trying to rack up a bit of damage around the field.
Benjamin actually reading that card as well. Fantastic to see. But you know, with that Calamitous Snowy Mountain, what's so important about that is because you know a lot of these decks in the format go for these larger knockouts. We see Raging Bolt, we see Joltik as well with the Iron Hands. You know, a lot of these Pokemon do such large damage amounts, but the Hops Zacian doesn't go for that approach. It goes for the smaller, more meticulous damage count. So with the Calamitous, with this Mountain, having that extra 20 damage on top of the 120, all of a sudden the damage ramps up really quickly.
And there's the ability to make sure it stays in play too, because you have many a stadium. So if you bump your opponent's stadium, keep it in play, you'll be racking up that damage for the rest of the game. As the Hops Zacian coming into the active, they're taking a knockout, spreading some damage, setting up future knockouts, and this is the early pressure that Hops decks want to try and put on.
Yeah, I love seeing these evolution Pokemon. I love seeing these smaller basic Pokemon because that 120 damage isn't so intimidating to the larger Pokemon in the format, but to evolving Pokemon like Dreepy, like a Ralts in the format as well, this Insta Strike is a really big threat, especially doing that extra 30 on the bench. It will ramp up over time.
And for those of you who aren't aware, that Snorlax on the bench, increasing the damage output by 30, and the tool as well, increasing damage output by 30, and reducing the attack cost by 1 colourless. And so that is that early combination looking to try and do the damage. And we mentioned earlier about how Unfair Stamp is so key in this matchup, and this is exactly why, because you look at this board, and you'd be able to Unfair Stamp them down to a low hand size, get the Snorlax up into the active, and win some turns back. But without it, that early disruption is less viable. Yeah, that extra helping ability on the Snorlax, increasing the damage once more by 30. So at the moment, this Insta Strike is doing a pretty intimidating 90 damage for no energy cost as well. You know, it turns from an Arven, finding a tool, into an energy effectively, right? Yeah, very good. And that is the combo piece you want to see, the Arven. We saw it find the secret box as well, which finds even more pieces if you maybe need to hit as high as 120 with the Postwick. But we're going to be watching now Benjamin Pham looking to try and build out that board. And there you see the Buddy Poppin revealing the counterpart to Dragapult, the Charmanders. And we mentioned quite a lot in the pre-show earlier on about Dragapult and its different partners. We mentioned Golden Go, we mentioned the Dusknoir versus the straight Dragapult build, but the Charizard build has definitely been the least popular so far. Why do you think people bring it to this event? Well, it's just something that you have to think about when you come into the format. There's a load of different threats coming into the format at the moment. You have your faster archetypes, you find your slower archetypes. It's just a factor of just being flexible in approach, right? And here we see the TM evolution. This is one way to get around those faster archetypes as well. Finding evolution as soon as you put basic down, you can use that TM evolution for evolution is the attack name. And here we see the Dracloak and the Charmeleon coming on board, and you'll be hoping if you're Benji to see a Charizard come down pretty soon. Yeah, and a lot of people worried about the faster archetypes taking down your Dracloaks as you try and energize them and evolve them up. If you've got that Charizard, you've always got the ability to sprinkle 3 Fire-type energies into play with its ability, and that's the key for the adaptation for Dragapult. How can I get energy into play? How can I evolve my Pokemon quicker? And this deck avoids the Budu slow play route and goes for a more aggressive evolution route. Yeah, and we see the Maractus actually in Emilio's hand. That can definitely come into play later on. I love the inclusion of the Maractus. It's a very just-in-case card, I like to say. That corner attack, not making the opponent's Pokemon not being able to retreat. If your opponent's not ready for that, doesn't include a 2-0, doesn't include any sort of switch effect on board. It
can come quite a threat later on, or even a potential stall play as well.
Now we see the Dragapult gusted up from the bench, using that boss's orders. Will take the knockout there, taking a little bit of draw support away, but mostly setting up the two Dragapults to be unavailable. Now once that 6 damage is on a Dragapult, it's going to be in much closer range in the future for a knockout, maybe even close enough for that Cramorant at some point to take a knockout. And this will be where Benji has to stabilize once again. It's really looking tough out here for him to try and get that first attack in.
Another method for Emilio to deal with these larger HP Pokemon is that Technical Machine Devolution as well. If you're able to get that magic 90 damage on these Pokemon, 100 for Charmeleon, unfortunately for him, because he does work in these 30 iterations, so it'll be interesting to see how he deals with the Charizard, if not just going for a straight up front attack. But putting 90 damage onto this Dracloak later on will mean that Devolution is going to be oh so important. And here we see the Pokemon headquarters come down for Benji Fan, so Emilio will need a manual attachment now for any sort of insta-strikes in future.
This is the key that we're mentioning of the tech cards people are bringing in. They're focusing on what's available in the format, finding cards that help them in their tougher matchups, but also are versatile. And Pokemon League Headquarters was not put in this deck for Hops Zacian. It was very much put in for other scary archetypes like Raging Bolt or the Miraidon archetype. I think this is the moment we see its versatility. There's so many strong basic attackers beyond the most popular decks, so it will have use cases elsewhere.
And here we see the Charizard come down Infernal Rain, 3 energy on board from that ability, 2 onto the Charizard, of course, and then 1 onto that Dragapult. What I'd like to see from Benji here is an evolution, if possible, into that Dragapult and start getting some damage on board to start taking some big knockouts. Now, important for the Hops Zacian, it's not going to be a big threat to these larger Pokemon like we've already established. It's not going to be taking any larger knockouts. There's no way for Emilio to start, putting evolution, putting energy onto that Hops Zacian for his second attack. So he knows he has the security behind that, Benji. So if he's able to just start chipping away at this Hops Zacian and potentially on board, it's going to be advantageous for him at least.
Yeah, and we see the Hops deck open with the Hops Zacian, 2 prize attacker. When that gets knocked out, you're able to establish a 1 prize board state for a few turns, and that will be the hope here. And for Benji, he's going to have to think ahead and try and work out how to stabilize his board, take some knockouts, but also potentially use that Dragapult to take more than 1 knockout. I see that Tatsugiri, the closest to being in range of that 60 damage counters that we all know and love from Dragapult. But for everyone watching at home, this is a great opportunity to see different archetypes keeping up with the format and showing how the viability is there. You don't have to play those big 3, the Dragapults, Gardevoirs, and Bolts of this world.
You don't. It is a pretty scary board state for Emilio to face here. Here we see the evolution into the Dragapult EX. Nothing is too easy to knock out anymore for Emilio. He's going to be hoping to maybe go with that strategy of the Technical Machine Devolution. I'd imagine a retreat here into the Charizard EX for knockout with the Burning Darkness now that Emilio's taking those 2 prizes. It's a card that we don't see very often anymore, but here we see it just taking advantage of that Burning Darkness. It's still such a strong attack, right?
Yeah, 240 damage covers the weaknesses of Dragapult, where it can't take these big 1-hit knockouts on scary basic Pokemon that are keeping that pressure on this occasion. That Hops Zacian will be knocked out in 1 hit. 240 damage now, it's only going to go up from here.
Yeah, and here we see the manual attachment onto the Monkey Dory actually with that Calamitous Stormy Mountain. Now this works great with Renebrain, right? Attach the darkness, attach the dark energy, and then put turning damage onto yourself and activate that as Renebrain. How great.
Yeah, typically these kinds of stadiums aren't popular because they're too passive. Your opponent can always bump them if you're relying on them to put the 20 damage on themselves, but when you can put damage on your side and use that Monkey Dory, we see it with Gardevoir doing it so well with those Psychic Energy attachments from the Psychic Embrace. In this occasion, that 20 damage modifier could put something into range. When you're working in multiples of 30 with this deck, with 30, 60, 90, 120 the Hops Zacian, finding that little bit of extra 20 could come in useful and also allow you to find things on the bench that otherwise might not be in range.
And here we see Emilio eyeing up with that Hops bag, 2 Hops Cramorants now. Of course, doing some damage now that Benji is going to be on 4 prizes. So getting some damage on board, especially with a single prize board, this is going to be advantageous for Emilio, of course, with Benji unable to take any sort of big 2 prize knockouts. Now with the Fickle Spitting, doing 120, if your opponent is on 3 or 4 prize cards, which Benji, as we've already established Benji is, and with that Hops Choice Band, it is actually doing 180 damage.
Yeah, thanks to the Snorlax as well, and for 0 energy cost with the Hops Choice Band, taking down the energy requirement there, and you can really see how low to the ground the deck is. Yes. Very simple, not too much energy required, which allows you to use those dark energy attachments on your Monkey Dory. You can see the vision here and why Emilio has gone 3-0. A very strong deck when played well, like Emilio is showing right now, and that's going to be 180 damage, and that 20 has been moved off. That's starting to get in range of that Blood Moon Ursaluna.
Yes, and of course putting the damage onto that Dragapult, it is going to be a later strategy for Emilio to use that Technical Machine Devolution, as we've already said. As long as he gets that magic 90 onto that Dragapult, it will be able to uplift that Dragapult DX into that it is 90 HP, it will be a knockout. So, and with this 180 damage onto this Charizard, he'll knock out the Charmeleon in succession as well.
You just got to recognise the different strategy and when it's correct to do it. Sometimes you want to just raw damage knock out these big 2 prize Pokemon through hitting enough damage, and other times you want to devolve, gain more turns yourself, and keep swinging with the Cramorant. So it will vary. And there's that 20 damage going to be going on to the Monkey Dory thanks to that Calamitous Snowy Mountain. And I think this is a card that now people are going to be looking at and thinking, I wonder where else I can use this.
Yeah, of course, 20 damage doesn't sound like a lot, but as we've already said with the Adrenabrain shenanigans, 10, 20, 50 damage doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're dealing with such fine margins in the Pokemon TCG, it is going to be oh so important.
This is huge. The damage moved off of the Dragapult onto that Tatsugiri, putting it in range of the double knockout, and that will shut down the Hops Cramorant going forward from here. So a huge turn for Benji as he guts up the Monkey Dory as well. The Cramorant is useless now. Keep that in play and take out a huge 2 prize turn on the Monkey Dory, on the Tatsugiri, and some damage to spare around the board. Yeah,
this is a fantastic play from Benji, taking 2 prizes and, like you said, nullifying any sort of way of doing damage with that Cramorant as well. And going down to 2 prizes, this is really a strong spot for Benji running away with this game potentially. And for Emilio, doesn't even have any sort of pivot to promote either. It's not a fantastic position to be in.
Yeah, the game plan of Hops is great when you are sitting there with your Hops Zacian, pinging away at the start, and they take it out and you go, that's great, now you've unlocked my Hops Cramorant. But Benji has jumped and hurdled straight over that 3 to 4 prize card range, which makes Hops Cramorant so powerful. And now Emilio is kind of stuck in that end game where Blood Moon Ursaluna is typically the go-to attacker, and now has to try and find a way to navigate that, still requiring 4 prize cards to win.
I actually really didn't like the promotion of that specific Hops Cramorant, just because it does have the choice band already attached. So if he was able to promote the one with no attachment, he could at least try and get a Devolution Island sort of play off.
But it's alright, just draw jet energy.
Yeah, you could just do that, I guess. But then again, you're just giving the devolved Pokemon back into Benji's hand. Yeah, and here we see the concession from Emilio. Writing was on the wall for sure.
And that just comes from the stability Benjamin Pham showed. What an amazing board state that middle of the game was. 2 Dracloak, a Charmeleon, ready to go. And as the game went on, it just got harder and harder for Hop Zacian, low power output, to keep up with those huge 2-prize stage 2s.
Yeah, and I think for the Hop Zacian, the writing was really there when Benji was able to use this TM evolution. You know, we've got to focus on it here. This is such a big play, just because you're not using rare candy, right? You're not staying with the devolved Pokemon being those smaller 70 HP Pokemon. You're actually evolving from a 190 HP Pokemon, and these are the sort of fine margins that are to Emilio's detriments, right? Because if in connection as well with the Adrenabrain, it just puts that technical machine devolution play just out of reach, really, for Emilio.
And I like the recognition from Benji using that Pheasantipity in the active for the TM Evo. Hop Zacian is great at taking out small 1-prize Pokemon, but really not great at taking out those big 2-prize Pokemon like Pheasantipity. So weirdly, it was the dream starter to have in the active, and pushing to the active to do that TM Evo. As if there's any damage on it, you're not too worried about it.
And this goes to your point that you made earlier, right? You know, you sometimes tax certain cards for specific matchups, but sometimes they come into play on these other matchups as well. And that's exactly what that TM evolution came into play for this game.
And I think it's fair to say the attack of Pheasantipity is very much live in this deck, as you can accelerate energy to it. So the options available for the Dragapult Charizard deck are way higher than you might first think, as you have the versatile range of attackers as we go into game 2 of round 4. Benji taking game 1, Emilio looking to answer back, starting though with that Snorlax.
Yeah, and here we see the buddy profile from Benji as well. You can imagine it's going to be a Dreepy and a possible Charmander on board. So that gets set up really nicely, and here we see the deck check as well from Benji. Now, I think, why do you think, you know, this archetype has got such a cult following? The Dragapult, you alluded to the flexibility and approach in terms of attackers, but why do you think that it has such a big following?
I think it's the matchup spread of a deck like this. It tends to get balanced out based off of the different strategies you can take. It's then down to you as the player to be skillful enough to recognize the correct paths and take them on. So stronger players like that when they know they have a chance into every single matchup. And on this occasion, it is a deck that is strong into the current format, with Charizard being great into the Gardevoirs, Dragapult's being great into the majority of the format, and then having that wide range of options in to the top decks, especially something like a Raging Bolt. If you can build up your Charizard and take your energy acceleration past the manual attachment style that most Dragapult decks have now, it allows you to keep that unfair stamp in. There's so many reasons why you might want to play it, but the key is, can you do it consistently enough? Does the deck run as smooth as more of these simpler archetypes that have less going on?
Yeah, 2 stage 2s in your deck doesn't sound that appetizing for the average player, but in terms of the Dragapult Charizard, you can just see why it is so popular. Dragapult's so flexible, you can even play Goldengo, you play the Dusknoir, you know, we're going to see which comes out on top hopefully this weekend. And here we see the start from Emilio with the Nest Ball, starting that Snorlax as well, not fantastic. It's going to maybe have to get that Latios down for that free retreat as well, which isn't great when you're facing a archetype that can take easy knockouts on that Latias.
Yeah, the Snorlax is great. What an ability to be able to add 30 damage to your Hops Pokemon, but it does have a hefty retreat cost, and
it does.
That is typically not ideal with your support Pokemon.
No, certainly so. And the Monkey Dory is a pretty good starter actually for Benji, because it does hide behind that. I say a high HP cost, but in consideration of Zacian's Insta Strike, it is actually pretty significant. The 120 damage, it will need quite a lot of damage modifiers. Oh, can we see the Jet Energy?
Oh, all of the pieces required to knock out that Monkey Dory have been put down. We have the Hops Choice Band reducing the cost and adding the 30 damage, the Postwick adding 30 damage, and the Snorlax adding 30 damage. So 120 to the active, 30 to the bench, and this is that early pressure we mentioned that is so scary from Hops decks.
Yeah, all the potential damage modifiers on board there for Emilio. Has the extra helping Snorlax, has the Choice Band, has the Postwick, so everything coming into place there. And oh, you would just see the pass from Benji. Now this is where the Zacian is really going to start to take advantage of the board state. If he's able to start get consecutive turns of damage on board, you know, this is only going to be to the advantage of Emilio.
Yeah, and I don't know if we can describe what Emilio's doing right now as a spring in his step, because it looks like he has a spring in his step. That excitement after seeing your opponent draw a pass is exactly what you want when you're an early aggression deck. He's going to be worried about things like unfair stamp and disruption, especially with that Snorlax as a liability on board, but now gets a chance to keep racking up that damage and gaining an advantage as you get towards the end of the game.
Yeah, and taking out the smaller Pokemon. I think if I was in Emilio's position, I'd really be looking out to knock out that Charmander as soon as possible. Does he have? Oh, he has the boss's orders as well onto that Charmander. This is the biggest threat on board for him. So being able to take out that Charmander, no Charizard in sight for Benji, and the 30 damage also onto that Dreepy. You know, he could be running away with this.
And we asked the question earlier, why do you think so many of these players love Charizard combined with Dragapult? And this might be showing you why so many players are avoiding playing Charizard with Dragapult. It can be tough to get past that first hurdle. Setup can be slow. It can be tricky, and it looks like now Benji is going to try and create as much time as possible to set up his board at the expense of Emilio, who's trying to just keep the pressure on.
And here we see the mind games coming in, really, because although Emilio knows that Benji doesn't really have necessarily anything going on in his hand, so really doesn't want to play that Ino. If he's able to afford manually attaching to the Snorlax and manually retreating, he might do so. Otherwise, he's going to be Inoing and trying to find that Latias for that free retreat.
We might be actually seeing the Snorlax attack shortly. 2 manual attachments. It does take 3 energy cost, and could even use that Hops Choice Band to reduce the energy cost, because the Pokemon League headquarters is in play. And these are the kind of moments where you recognise different attacks on your board. Every Pokemon typically has an attack that is somehow usable in some moment. Even if their ability is what they're in deck for, you have to bear in mind that they could be a viable option in a rare case scenario.
Certainly so. Here we see the first Dracula coming down. Oh, that Charizard just coming out on top there as well. Unfortunately, with that Charmander being knocked out, it's just going to be a pass here into Emilio. And here we see the manual attachment into the Snorlax in the top deck, I believe, of that Professor's Research. This is huge for Emilio. Really going to be looking to get rid of that Professor League headquarters, or finding a Hops Choice Band, unable to find anything there. Not even a way to find the Latias either. Just find that Monkey Dory and potentially a pass. Yeah, here we go.
A turn 1 back for Benji. It was 1 card away, either a Stadium Bump or the Hops Choice Band. It wasn't there, and now Benji looking to develop the board. With Dracula on board, you're seeing more cards at least, and now is a chance to try and find that dream top deck. It's going to be the Buddy Buddy Poffin, which we played straight away. Try and widen up that board, create more options, get that Charmander back online.
Yeah, it's really going to be looking to put 2 Charmander on board if possible. But here we see the potential. Yeah, another Dreepy on board. Hopefully getting those Dracloaks up and running to find that engine. And I believe Benji actually top decked an Ino, so we can be sure to see that this turn to put Emilio down to 4 cards and start getting up and running for Benji, because you know it's the smaller damage being on board, the longer that Emilio has to establish this board state, the better. Oh, here we see the technical machine evolution attachment as well. So he's definitely going to be looking to get an energy off this Ino. 6 big cards for Benji. Does he find the energy? Yes, he does.
And a Dracloak there to continue developing the board. Only the 1 Charmander down because the other was knocked out earlier, is in the discard pile. Plays only the 2 Charmander, a 2-1-2 line of the Charizard. and going to be evolving the active, continue those recon directives, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose the one you prefer, and put the other one on the bottom of your deck. Creates a lot of useful draw, as well as filtering out those cards you don't want to see and putting them as far away from your next draws.
Yeah, it's an oh so important engine for this Dragapult recon directive. You want to be getting as many down as soon as possible, start drawing as many cards as possible, and establishing your board state, starting getting those attachments down, potentially even doing other variants. But I think for Benji is to just get these faster evolutions, to get straight into the Charizard, start putting damage on board, and here we see the evolution into that Charmeleon and Dracloak as expected. Now for Emilio, it's whether he can find a potential gust on that Charmeleon and start taking knockouts just as he was in those first couple of turns.
How strong has the Pokemon League headquarters been? Come through here, denied the attacking option of Snorlax for so long, will now be able to attack, and is going to target down that Charmeleon. And for those of you who didn't know what Snorlax did, now you get to see it, being able to do all that damage, but will be returning damage to itself.
That boss was absolutely massive. We've already said that the biggest threat to Emilio is that Charizard EX, and now with that Charmeleon gone, that's both Charmanders being knocked out by a boss's orders. So for Benji, it's whether he can establish any sort of game plan with a Dragapult EX perhaps. He does have 3 Dracloak on board, so the odds are he's going to be able to find what he needs, you would imagine, seeing an additional 6 cards from the top of the deck, choosing only 3 of them, of course, but if he's able to find those pieces to start putting some sort of disruption for Emilio and start putting damage on board, you'd imagine that's going to be the way forward for Benji.
Yeah, so using that active Dracloak, preparing it for evolution, hoping to try and find the Dragapult and a energy. There's no psychic energy in the deck. That is the difference we see with the Charizard build. You have plenty of fire. You have the 5 fire energy so that you can accelerate them with the Charizard EX, but 4 of those luminous energy can be used as the psychic energy, can be used for the Monkey Dory. It opens up that versatility, which we're seeing more and more now in Dragapult builds.
Yeah, with the Dragapult, if you want to try and adopt a Monkey Dory, you're going to have to find a way to put the dark energy onto the Monkey Dory, and luminous energy is the most common way of doing that. Of course, is going to be a sort of, well, a way to attach to anything for any sort of energy cost. That is the effect of the card, right? So, but for Benji, it's not a searchable card, it is a special energy, so he's going to have to draw into it. He's going to have to rely on these recon directives and the Ino, as you can see. And here we see the custom catcher onto the Hops Zacian. This is a big play from Benji. This could be potentially a risk here if he's unable to find the energy.
And even then, the Snorlax with the 8 damage counters on it still has 70 HP left, so it is able to sustain the majority of that Dragapult attack. It will have 10 HP remaining. There is ways to find that last little bit of damage with Monkey Dory and other options we see in other decks like Holucha, which aren't available here, but it is still so bulky despite doing 80 damage to itself.
And he was able to find the luminous energy from that Ino, thankfully for him. And here we see 2 additional recon directives. Does offer the boss over the Buddy Puffin, which is near enough useless now, I'd say, with no way or no method in sight of getting back those Charmeleon Charmanders. Yeah, no recovery in deck for them, so they are long gone for this game. And here we see the first Phantom Dive of the game for Benji.
And that's going to be piling the damage on the board. And it's going to be tapping on that Snorlax. We'll find out how much that is. It's going to be just the 1 damage there, setting up for the 60, and then 5 damage counters on the Monkey Dory, also setting up in range of a future 60 damage from that Dragapult. And the Zacian in the active has 40 HP remaining, so all of these Pokemon in range of a knockout if they sit on the bench.
Yeah, and for Emilio now, putting himself, it's going to be from Benji's Ino, down to 3 cards in hand, and 1 draw for turn. Does find an Arven with only 4 cards in hand. It's going to be whether he can establish a board for the next turn, because Benji's certainly going to be taking some prize cards on his next turn. So if he's able to try and find another Zacian, does have the Hops bag in hand, but it's whether he can start setting up for those future turns possibly is going to be on the priority. Now Hops Cramorant is going to be active next turn. Definitely if Benji's going to be going for the 3 prize or the 2 prize approach of gusting up one of these other Pokemon on the field. So that could be another option. Maybe find another Hops bag perhaps with this Arven.
Yeah, and the main challenge for Emilio is not having the ability to take a big knockout. You have the Brave Slash attack on Hops Zacian that is 240 damage, and with all the damage modifiers would be enough to take out a Dragapult, but not the energy in the deck to be able to do it. It's too much of a cost having that 3 metal and 1 colourless. So just relying heavily on the Insta Strike in combination with Cramorant through the mid game and Blood Moon Ursaluna at the end. So really needs to rely on that sprinkling, the spreading of damage, maybe the devolution or maybe the finish off of the Blood Moon.
Yeah, and I think for Emilio, 3 prize cards is really peculiar because you're up against a Dragapult with a massive HP cost, 290 HP left on that. So that's not going to be an easy knockout to take for your 2 prizes. But that 1 prize is really bugging me actually, because I don't really know how he's taking this, because unless he's able to gust up another Pokemon on field, it's going to be really hard to take because he really wants to be able to find a 2 attack method of taking the game. Here we see the Iron Bundle.
There you go.
Answered. There you go. Thank you, Emilio. So with that Hyper Blower, it's going to put up a single prizer on board and put trickle 30 damage onto that Dragapult, and in connection with that Adrenal Brain, could potentially put the Dragapult in range of a Blood Moon Ursaluna.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what card it was a few formats ago, featured in many of the aggressive decks, but it's kind of fallen out of favour recently, as there are more decks looking to get behind, utilise things like Counter Catcher and the more reliable Boss. But on this occasion, it fits perfectly in the deck because you're so typically not wanting to swing into the active Pokemon the way people promote. As we've seen Benji every single time promoting the Pokemon with damage on it.
Yes.
And so now we'll find a bench Pokemon, so we'll get down to that final 2 prize cards remaining, hoping to take a knockout here and then putting 30 damage on either of those Dracloaks.
Yeah, the Nespo for Iron Bundle was not something I've seen, but here we see the Insta Strike.
He targeted the Dragapult. As it's a Terra Pokemon, you cannot take damage on the bench.
Super unfortunate for Emilio. It's easy to forget. It is really easy to forget. Terra Pokemon does have that kind of integral bench barrier embedded into the Pokemon, so choosing that Pokemon will effectively be nullified from that bench damage. And here we see Benji with the first recon directive of the turn. Unsure what he opted for there. Does have the boss's orders in hand already if he wants to go with that method of approach. Here we see the check of the discard pile. Does have another recon directive he can use, and that Pokemon League headquarters has been on the board for quite a while. So if he does want to use that Hops Cramorant, it's going to be a manual attachment again with a Hops Choice Band, which is not that easy to do with no energy search for Emilio.
And with Emilio, he has 5 stadiums, 3 post-wick and 2 of those Calamitous Snowy Mountains. Those you just tuned in. Yes, I did say that right. Calamitous Snowy Mountain.
I was struggling to say myself. So.
It's a great card inclusion. We saw how effective it can be to get that damage on the Monkey Dory, to use it to sprinkle some damage about, but it is also a great way to force damage on board through energy attachments on the opponent's side. So any of those right now would be great for Emilio to bump that stadium. On this occasion, Benji will be looking to spread all that damage about and take knockouts, but on this occasion there is no guarantee here to push anything onto the bench. It's going to just take down the active and spread 6 damage counters somewhere else. Looking to take out the Snorlax here, potentially.
I mean, I would. There's no other way of attacking easily for Benji, but just go for that Monkey Dory.
Interesting. So now we see that Snorlax with all the energy on and is able to attack under Pokemon League headquarters as it was energized while that stadium was in play earlier on. And so that attack, not only will it put a lot of damage on the Dragapult, but it will put itself as a knockout because it does do damage to itself. 80 damage to itself. So a really interesting end board state here we are witnessing.
Yeah, and I really want to touch upon Benji's last turn. Did have the Dragapult in hand to evolve one of these Dragapults, but opting not to. Seeing the value in a recon directive next turn, if Amelia was able to potentially disrupt with an INO, at least Benji gets to 3 cards in hand, but then still has those recon directives up and running, and maybe finds value in finding something for next turn. If he does, feel the stress on finding a potential boss or a potential INO again for next turn, that's you can just see why Benji valued those recon directives instead of going for that evolution and finding the security of having another attacker on board.
And for those of you just tuning in, we are in Utrecht for our special championship. Swiss round 4 on stream at the moment. Both these players, trio, Emilio and Benjamin, coming in with less typical deck choices, which might be surprising when you see Dragapult, but it is paired up with Charizard EX, where the Hops deck is struggling to keep up with that Dragapult pressure, but is looking to find a less typical route to victory in these final stages, with that Snorlax in the active, looking to take a knockout and knock itself out. Yeah,
going for another Hyper Blow here as well with the Iron Bundle, taking out another single prize Dragapult here, and does find the research as well. Opting to get rid of that Hop Zacian. I think the approach now is for Emilio to find the last knockout with that Blood Moon Ursaluna. And the prizes here, as we can see, Postwick and the rescue board for Emilio, so may have to go for a Latias in the future turns to try and find a switch out. Does have it in hand, fortunately enough for him, from that research. And here we see the Hyper Blower is, as you imagine, going for the Dragapult with no energy attachment, saving that energy on that bench one there. And, this is definitely getting into the home stretch now for this game.
Well, and there's the Stadium Bub finally able to do it. And actually, this is something we didn't think about. That Monkey Dory could allow the Snorlax to survive. If we move that 30 damage off, it will have 60 HP taken away, and it will take 80 more HP away from itself, which is 140 damage, and means it survives on 10 HP. A strong, large Pokemon. We know Snorlax typically has high HP. 150 HP on that active Hop Snorlax will take a knockout and reduce its own HP to 10.
Yeah, buys Emilio another turn here as well, because Benji... Oh, no, Benji still does have a way of taking a 2-prize knockout here with the effect of that dynamic press attacks. 80 damage to itself. Unfortunately enough, with that Dragon Brain does survive from that as well. And here we see Benji just starting his turn. Like I said, is going to be looking to take that 2-prize knockout potentially by gusting up that Monkey Dory or that Cramorant. You imagine it'd be the Monkey Dory, right?
The crazy thing with Dragapult is there's always a rare case scenario that they could lean towards here. There is a win condition for Benji on board now that Pheasant EX is there. Would require lots of combo pieces, but he'll be thinking with that huge hand size, it is possible here to potentially find it behind on prize cards, so can use that counter catcher, can find more draw with the Pheasant can use a lot of those supporter cards. It's a great effect here. So there is a world that we see a 3-prize turn.
It would be Gust onto Pheasant and a Monkey Dory Dragon Brain, right?
Yeah.
And then a Phantom Dive onto the Snorlax as well, taking 3 prizes for game. You see the ever so important flip the script. Benji just contemplating on what to do here, really, and the options that are available to him. And as you mentioned, very importantly, Counter Catcher is live now that Emilio's on that 1 prize. So is Benji able to find this way of winning? Does have Unfierce Snap as well in hand for an extra 6 cards, potentially.
And can play that safer route of, like, I don't want to try and risk going for this all in play. Maybe what's better for me now is just to have a stable board where there's no easy knockouts for you, and you'll have to try and find a way around that post-disruption. And
I think important for Benji now, mentioning that Pheasant will mean that Emilio is able to gust up that Pheasant with the Blood Moon Ursaluna, with the boss's orders, and take a knockout with the Blood Moon Ursaluna. So there is a route for Emilio here as well.
So I think that Monkey Dory is in the discard pile if it's not already in hand. Has the energy to be able to take that big knockout. So, yeah, not a way to get the Monkey Dory from the discard pile. And will be... There's a Super Rod there.
There is a Super Rod. So there was recovery in the deck for Benji. So can find that Monkey Dory, but with the only way of searching that Monkey Dory out being an Ultra Ball and the Brock's Scouting, I don't believe that was an option from the hand. I didn't see any Ultra Ball in there.
No.
But with an Unfair Stamp, he could potentially find it here.
Yeah, well, we'll see what the route is. I mean, the Unfair Stamp is such an effective tool early game to disrupt your opponent's hand, but when you're looking at a board like this, where there is just the attackers on board plus a Pheasant 2 cards is not a lot. Even if you get that flip the script draw from the Pheasant, you're not seeing many cards. And with a big Dragapult in the active, taking a knockout and setting up game for the next turn, this could actually be a really strong position going forward. And just to thin out that Chi-Yu, we haven't mentioned it much, this isn't really the matchup for it, but it is a card in the deck that you want to be familiar with as we go through the tournament. A great attacker, fire-type attacker into certain decks in the format.
Certainly is. And another route to victory for Emilio, which I've just pretty much found out, is that the Hops Cramorant can take a knockout on the Pheasant as well. If you're able to find all of your damage modifiers and Adrenaline bring 30 damage onto the Pheasant, it could take a big knockout for 2 prizes there.
Yeah, that would be in the case where Benji tries to not take a knockout to leave Pheasant unavailable. At the moment he takes 1 prize card, that Cramorant won't be able to attack. But these are all the options that Benji's having to think about. There's so many different routes to victory.
Oh yes, of course. Sorry, yeah, you are right. You are right. So here we see the Phantom Dive on the Snorlax, 60 damage being spread from that Dragapult.
And this is where do you put that damage? Well, you have to put some on the Pheasant because if that's in the active, you want to take a knockout.
At least 1.
Put 4 on there so that the Monkey Dory moving 30 off will still be in range of a knockout.
Bit foreshadowing there from Benji and 20 onto the Hops Cramorant with that Snorlax knocked out now. It's whether Emilio can find anything here with just a 2-card hand. Flip the script is there as well. And you see the post-wick.
6 minutes left on the round. This is an important time for Emilio to try and turn this 0-1 position into a draw, or maybe a chance at a quick Game 3 victory. For Benji, looking to just close this out and go even further through the tournament into that 4-0 position on day 1. A great place to be, especially for a player with his caliber who can continue that winning streak going forward.
I think the Counter Catcher is in deck. I think he does have it. He does have the Nest Ball for the Blood Moon Ursaluna and Arven for the Counter Catcher. If it is in deck, he does have the game here. Does have the Blood Moon Ursaluna in deck. Unfortunately, I don't think there was a Counter Catcher in hand.
Well, on 1 prize card remaining, would need to have used that boss, so it's going to be really hard for him now to try and find a knockout, but maybe putting 30 damage across onto the active Dragapult. That's not quite in range of the Blood Moon Ursaluna, and this is where that little bit of 30 move off of the Dragapult earlier is so key in this final stage, as it has moved the Dragapult out of range of the end game Blood Moon Ursaluna attack.
Yeah, getting rid of all those damage modifiers now, the 2 Hops Choice Band and the 1 post-wick. A Rescue Stretcher here. What can we try and find with the Rescue Stretcher? So many different options now for Emilio to try and recover a Pokemon. Can go with a Hop Zacian, can go with another Iron Bundle, although I don't see the benefit in doing that, of course. Going with the Rescue Stretcher, I'm really interested to see what his mindset's at here.
A lot of options gone. The support's already used for turn, so takes away a lot of those options. And this deck has a whole box of choices. There's that Technical Machine Devolution, which won't be very effective here. You have that Penny to be able to pick up the damaged Pokemon, but without the ability to use a supporter for turn. That's out of the case. You've got the Maractus, which has some rare use cases, but I think it really is going to have to just be a Blood Moon Ursaluna, and hope that you have another turn to sprinkle some damage across.
Just hope that you can hide behind the big HP cost of the Blood Moon Ursaluna. With Phantom Dive only doing that 200 damage, isn't going to be able to find an easy knockout on that Blood Moon Ursaluna. So I think for Emilio, it's just kind of hope that he doesn't have any sort of way of knocking it out, perhaps, or finding Gust.
We've got the Jet Energy to get into the active, so that will be a way to attack. You can also use Jet Energy later on to reset the attack.
Yes.
So I think with the Monkey Dory, moving that 30 damage across 2 turns with the Blood Moon Ursaluna attack would be enough. 240 plus 30 plus 30 plus the 30 already on the Dragapult would be enough for the knockout, and then that would ask more questions of Benji on the other side. So the final moments here of our round 4 stream game, coming down to some unorthodox routing for Emilio to try and end the game with that Blood Moon Ursaluna.
Yeah, and here we see another Monkey Dory coming down. Does have the energy and switch in hand, so can find 2 Adrenaline.
Does he have the knockout there? I think he might have the knockout, you know.
So he moves 60 damage, 60, 90, it'd be 210, yes, that would be knockout.
So if he moves that 20, he's looking through it, just checking the maths now. Emilio moving 30 across, making it 60 damage on that Dragapult. Now has that energy switch in hand. You can see doing the maths, checking those last few things. Energy switch across the other Monkey Dory, moving a further 20, just making sure in his final stages. And the Jet Energy, the final card from hand for the knockout. And Emilio will be taking down the Dragapult and taking down game 2 of round 4. Amazing performance from Emilio in those final stages.
Wow, what a fantastic game. There's just so many little intricacies in that deck list for Emilio. The Zacian just finding the right damage modifiers at the right time. Those Adrenaline in connection with the energy switch. That rescue stretch, I really didn't know what he was switching for at that point, but having the energy switch in hand, of course, the Monkey Dory, finding the second one on board, moving effectively 60 damage onto that Dragapult, putting it in range of that Blood Moon Ursaluna. It's a method that we thought would come into play later on, and that's exactly what happened.
And it started so strong for Emilio. Early knockouts on the Charmanders allowed for a slower approach for Benji. Benji really took a while to get going, but eventually that Snorlax got locked in the active and had to start swinging for itself.
Yeah, that's exactly what Emilio needed. Finding those real important knockouts on the Charmander. It's definitely the biggest threat for Emilio, so having to find those crucial bosses orders for that Charmeleon and Charmander was just the right way for Emilio to take advantage. And this play, this is something we just did not see coming at the time. Nice stretch for that Monkey Dory, finding the energy switch, unlocking 2 potential Adrenabrains onto the Dragapult, moving that 50 damage onto that Dragapult EX, like we said, and that Blood Moon Ursaluna just being in the right range at the right time.
And it was the final card from hand. All the pieces came together, and you saw how much it strained Emilio having to think through that route. It is a sign of a great player that they use these unorthodox routes. The Snorlax attacking, for one, is something you very rarely see with this deck. So that being a factor alone in that game was impressive. But for it to then go all the way to that final perfect knockout, final card from hand, perfect damage, Blood Moon Ursaluna takes the victory and will be going into a quick game 3. If either player can take an early knockout, especially for Hop Session, a great card to put pressure on, this could be a massive win for either of these players.
I've just hit in my ear, there's 2 additional minutes of added time to this game, so there is a little bit of an increase of time allowed for both of these players to find a potential winner. But going back to it, that energy switch, it only plays 1. So it's all about having the card at the right time. So, finding it in your hand at that crucial moment in time is exactly what Emilio would have thought of at the time. And, to his credit, finding that additional, finding that energy switch at the right time was just, crazy. What a game.
Especially with how close Benji was to taking it the previous turn.
Yes.
With a huge hand size, not able to find it through that. And then the start here for Emilio, strong. All you need to do is get an energy on board, Monkey Dory in play, Hop Station there, but that Bloodoo this time in play. We didn't see that in either of the other 2 games, but a huge asset here for Benji, who's looking to avoid losing potentially in this moment.
Yeah, but Badoo's pretty tasty for Zacian. 30 HP is just right on the money for that Insta Strike. So if Emilio's able to find some sort of Gust here, if he's able to find the Iron Bundle, he is under item lock, unfortunately, so if he's able to draw into it, I think this would be a great... Oh, and he finds the Iron Bundle! Finds it on the last card from that Professor's research, and now able to find that Gust up to a Dreepy, has the Hop's Choice Band as well.
Even has the Rescue Ball to maintain the energy.
And that 1 damage counter on the Monkey Dory, the Adrenabrain, will put that 1 damage counter onto that Dreepy as well. Now is able to have that knockout with the Postwick and the Hop's Choice Band, and onto the Badoo. 2 early prize cards from Emilio. Can Benji deal with this pressure?
And this is the early pressure we've mentioned in each of the games, and the early struggle of the Charizard Dragapult build. Setting up fast is a difficult thing to do when you have so many different lines you can take. But on this occasion, a Draclick is there. The stadium of that's MVP stadium from the last game, that Pokemon League headquarters, increasing the attack cost of basics by 1 colorless, might come in useful here. But Emilio has so many options now. He's opened back up to that huge hand size with the research, has another research there, so we'll be in a great position to continue this pressure.
This is a really forgiving research from Benji, just because he was able to find a few additional basic Pokemon to put on the bench. Does find a Dreepy, does find a Charmander, but for Emilio, just like in the last game, he's really going to be wanting to ramp up the pressure just as he did and find these knockouts on these basic Pokemon. And I wasn't able to see Gust in his hand straight away, but for Benji, he's going to be looking to put down that... Oh, he does bench the Chi-Yu as well as an additional option. Does have the Dreepy. I think for the Chi-Yu as well, it's a bit of a sacrificial lamb, because, for Emilio, is able to have these easy knockouts on these smaller Pokemon, and that's exactly what we see here. Manual retreat into the Chi-Yu, and a potential pass, perhaps?
It's really a good attack in this matchup if you do power it up. I think you'd rather have all your energy on Charizard and the like, but on this occasion, will, like you said, be pushed forward with the intention of maybe tanking a hit if possible.
Yeah.
And at this point, it looks like Benji is playing with survival in mind.
Yeah, indeed. And here we see the boss's orders in hand from Emilio. This is a fantastic start. Does have Hop's Bag in hand as well, so is able to find another Hop Zacian if he does want to get set up for those later zones. Here we see, going for the Arven instead, maybe going for more of a setup play. Does have the safety, at least, of the Chi-Yu being in the active. There's no threats coming on board just yet, so he's taking advantage of that and finding another turn for setup.
And with that Snorlax in play, plus a Postwick, which can be found with the Secret Box, we'll be able to do 120 damage to the active. And this is why that Secret Box is so good in the Hops deck. So many different trainer types with that Hop synergy. A stadium, a tool, an item. You can find all of those in this scenario. Yeah,
one thing I didn't mention is that, of course, he is going to have to find a way to bump that Pokemon League headquarters if he does want to get another Insta Strike out on board. So does find the Postwick from the Secret Box. Secret Box, as you mentioned just then, how useful is this? I mean, could potentially find another boss to try and start streaming these boss's orders one after the other. Does go for the Earthen Vessel. Maybe suggesting that Benji does have more Pokemon League headquarters ready to put down to start disrupting.
And you can see the timer is at 0 on the stream. We'll get confirmation as to whether the players still have a little bit more extra time. The play right now is all about getting as far ahead for Emilio as possible, so that when the time is called, then they can try and finish it off. So we are in turn 1 right now, so Emilio looking to try and close out the game in as few turns as possible, but it's going to be really tricky based off of the amount of Pokemon in play for Benji. A full board wipe would also be taking 4 prize cards, which is very tricky to do in 2 turns.
Certainly is. For both players, it's going to be hard to find a route to victory if anybody wants to win this game. I think for Emilio, he'd probably be looking to use that technical machine devolution for multiple prize knockouts. Does go for the Hobbs bag now, does have the security of having more Pokemon on the field, so at least he has the security of not losing this game, perhaps. Now, with that Hobbs Zacian in the active, looking for that manual attachment or putting down that Mountain to get rid of that Pokemon League headquarters to start getting some attacks up and running. But yeah, it's really difficult to see a route to victory, I guess.
I guess you do have the additional damage, the 20 damage that counter Snowy Mountain can do, but it's not going to be enough in a short space of time. But at least taking the knockout in the active, putting another 30 damage in play, you're getting yourself closer to that final goal, which is the big winning moment, and is trying to find a way to it in turn 1 here. So back to Benji now, his final turn of the game here.
Yeah, and here we see the promotion of that Monkey Dory. This is turn 2 of time, and Benji just first recon directive, looking for that Buddy Puff in. And difficult, there's 3 bosses in hand for Benji, so can go for some sort of stall play on that Snorlax, as we've already established hefty retreat cost on that Snorlax, so will bait a potential Latias coming out for Emilio, but yeah, difficult to see a winner from this game.
And that 30 damage on the Dreepy can be pushed across with the Monkey Dory. You'll get sent straight back with Emilio's Monkey Dory. So we're kind of seeing a little bit of a stalemate end game potentially here. But what a game 2 from Emilio to have a chance in game 3, and early pressure was seen, almost an early win with that double knockout on the first attacking turn for Emilio, and now gets a chance to try and finish the game. It is always difficult in these final moments when you know you're so far ahead to try and find a knockout, and we'll be gussing up with that boss's orders onto the Dreepy, and Emilio fist bumping there. What a game we've seen. Benji starting strong, a great victory in game 1. Game 2, an amazing comeback from Emilio in the final moments to get the perfect knockout with the final card in hand, but it went down to the wire, and game 3 was not concluded.
Yeah, we've seen some fantastic games thus far on stream, and that was just another one. We've seen game 1 that went right down to the wire as well in the game 2, just like we had in this circumstance as well. You know, just going to show how skill intensive the format is right now. All these intricate plays, all these different tech cards making such big impacts on game states, and here we see Benji from the game 1, such a dominant performance with that Charizard EX.